You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Hello, I'm JJ Bull and I'm an analyst for Tifo Football, and you have found our new channel Tifo IRL, which is Tifo in real life. It's lovely to have you. This is the first of our series of videos on the Euros. We're going to go through each group and talk about how the different teams line up tactically. This one is about the Group of Death, which is so named because the losing team has to be violently murdered on screen in a separate televised event. Very sad. But yes, that's what we're going to do. It'd be wonderful if you could subscribe to this channel because we're trying to grow it as fast as we can, do as many videos as we can, and we want to make sure that you're along with us for the ride. So yeah, please do that, and you can like the video as well. That really helps. And tell me in the comments how many names I have pronounced incorrectly. I'm going to try very hard not to do that. Also, if you hear any building work, it's because our studio is right next to a building site, which was really wise, and we're really enjoying the interruptions from the noise. So if you hear that, that's why. But first, in fact, yeah, let's just go into it. Let's start with France. Now, this is France. France have one of the best squads in the entire tournament. They are joint tournament favourites along with England. Some of the players that they didn't even bring along are the likes of Deo Upamecano, Anthony Martial, Eduardo Camavinga. They're kind of spoilt for choice. They've got an amazing team. They're still managed by Didier Deschamps, who was the guy in charge when they won the World Cup. You may remember him from France '98 and other footballing TV shows. So this is how they play. They tend to be in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. It changes a little bit within the system, but we're going to go through some of the absolute certainties that we'll see in the team. So Raphael Varane is definitely going to be there as the main centre-back in the back four. I think it'll probably be Pascal Kimpembe, who plays alongside him at the back. Now, Lucas Hernandez, really attacking left-back. He's going to get up and down this wing and give them a lot of attacking width. Really great player there. Benjamin Pavard is sort of a centre-back who plays at full-back. Really talented player. He'll often end up, especially at set pieces around these areas in front of the box, because he's got a great, it's just great shooting from long range. He finds the corner really well. But when France do move forward, what he tends to do is he can tuck in as a centre-back. So they can do this sort of centre-back, the three at the back thing that a lot of teams do in transition as they build. But we'll stick with the four for just now while we're building this. In the midfield, you're going to have N'Golo Kante. No one in the world doesn't like N'Golo Kante, but he's a lot more defensive for France than he has been for Chelsea this season, for example. So at Chelsea, he'll get up and down, box to box, help with the high press in the final third. For France, he's more of a defensive midfielder, so he'll screen the back two an awful lot, trying to win balls in this sort of area here. He's very good in possession too, but he's more of a defensive player. Sometimes he'll get forward if another defensive midfielder, maybe Pogba, will sit in. But this is one of the reasons that you've got Adrien Rabiot on the bench. So Paul Pogba is likely to start alongside Kante in a midfield two. And Pogba, as I'm sure most people know, is phenomenally technically gifted, great at getting forward and producing these sorts of long passes over the top that are going to send people like Kylian Mbappe away on the break, but not like that. With this lovely bend. I love the bends. There we go. So people like Mbappe are going to be able to run and get onto these long balls that he can send over the top. Kante's back here. Pogba is also great at getting out of tight situations when people try to surround him on the ball. So he's great at helping France play in transition. You can catch him in possession sometimes. That's one of the things that kind of lets the side down. And he can sometimes be a little bit slow on the ball, and it slows down France's play, which is relevant when you consider how they actually want to play in the final third especially. Kylian Mbappe is one of the best players in the entire world, one of the best strikers, obviously, in the entire world. Lightning quick. So when France are able to get the ball in behind, phenomenal at doing that. There's a few humans in the world who can run as fast as him. There's probably a few cars that can't catch up with him as well. But he wants to be able to get into the space behind the back line, essentially. France will want to break. They want to play in transition when they can. They're quite conservative. They're not as attacking as a team full of so many talents as they have might be. But it kind of works for them because they're defensively solid that way and they don't leave too many gaps. Now, when Mbappe's up here, say, and you've got Griezmann, and Griezmann's one of the key players in the team. So he starts as a 10, but he floats around an awful lot. So he'll end up either side of Mbappe. He'll drop into wide areas sometimes when he needs to. He'll attack the half spaces, and he's able to get these kind of long range shots where the ball kind of curls in the top corner. And there's a few examples of him doing this. Hugely talented. He's kind of a playmaker and a second striker at the same time. Really important to how France play. So say we're in this sort of situation here. Because we know that Pavard often tucks in fact, we'll go when they attack. So because Pavard's not quite as attacking a fullback as certain others, he might stay quite conservative when France go up to the final third. Kingsley Coman is a winger, outright winger, and he'll stay wide to give them their attacking width. Really important. Pavard's a bit more conservative, kind of protecting against the counter-attack. Kante will try to screen the back two. Pogba can join in when they get up. Thomas Lemar, I think, is likely to start as part of the forward line. Could be a couple other options. I've got a few on the bench, like Marcus Thuram. Ousmane Dembele could come on as well, but I think it's going to be Lemar. You'd have Hernandez overlapping here when they're really in attack, and the back two is going to help protect it. So that's kind of thing it's going to look like. One of the things France come up against, even though they're so good with the ball, is that opposition teams just drop deep against them. And this is one of the things, especially in international tournament football, is not a lot of teams play with a high line. So when you want to get Mbappe in behind, you can't. There's just no space. And that is why I think they've brought in Karim Benzema from exile. So he's not been in the squad for a long time, but has been recalled by Didier Deschamps, who said that he wouldn't play Benzema at all. They wouldn't pick him, and didn't for about, that's a good few years now. It might be an admission that he knows France are lacking something, and the way Benzema will play will be as a straight 9 up here, and that'll move Mbappe out to the left or the right when they're attacking. So if we're in a 4-2-3-1, we'll move these back so you can see more how the shape's going to work. So you might get Benzema played as a straight 9. He's amazing at link-up play, so this is really important. It gives him an option to get the ball from back to front a bit quicker, play it into his feet, or he can even take it down on the chest, but that's really important, but not really why he's there. He's there because he makes things happen in the box. Great movement, incredible technique. Plenty of examples this season alone where he's scored with either foot from 20 yards, and that could be the difference, especially when you're playing against teams who are going to sit in a deep block, like Hungary, like Portugal are going to do for a lot of the time. So when you can't get Mbappe in behind, you can use his pace and his amazing dribbling ability out wide. That means you can put someone like Benzema. Olivier Giroud often does this role for France, but Benzema's in now, pretty much taking that away from him. And we'll see that quite a bit going through. One more thing we should talk about is in the midfield. So we talked about how Pogba and Kante can often play, but Adrien Rabiot can sometimes come into the team, either as part of the 2 or as part of a 3. So he's a bit more defensive-minded than Pogba, and he can either sit as a 6 or he can play as an 8 and join in the attacks. So you could have that Pogba is moving forward to join these bits and Rabiot will help out Kante. It could be that Pogba doesn't play in certain games and Rabiot plays to give you a bit more of a defensive cover. We're missing a player now, so I'll put Pogba back in. What you might find is that Griezmann will drop into wide areas, Pogba can be around here, Benzema can play in here. They've got a lot of options, France. Adrien Rabiot is an interesting one because, like I say, he's a bit more defensive-minded, but he can pick a pass. Really talented player. And because France aren't as attacking as maybe they could be with some of their players, they're really hard to beat, and then they just hit you in transition and they win. They're really, really good, and there's a reason they're one of the tournament favourites. Now, Germany are not the superpower that once they were. They're actually in a kind of a weird transitional state, and you can see that in the manager. So Jogi Löw is going to leave after this tournament. So it's basically his stag do or leaving party, more like a leaving party, not a stag do. But yeah, he's going to be replaced by Hansi Flick, who was his assistant when they won the World Cup back in the day. They're not as good as they used to be. One of the things included in this transitional period is that Löw has tried to bring through a new generation of players, tried to make a younger, a new, better Germany. And he dropped a lot of the experienced players that helped him out, players like Mats Hummels, Jerome Boateng, Thomas Müller. They all got pinged. However, it hasn't been going very well for them. They've lost 6-0 to Spain, and they were terrible in there. They changed systems halfway through the game, couldn't get into it. They were left far too much space between the lines, too open. Spain destroyed them. And they also lost 2-1 to North Macedonia, who aren't amazing. So it's not, things haven't gone too well. And we've seen it in the squad that he's tried to address some of these issues. So Mats Hummels has come back in. Jerome Boateng didn't make it. Thomas Müller is back as well. The other thing with Germany is we don't we don't know how they're going to line up. People in Germany aren't exactly sure how they're going to line up. It's probably going to be a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. A good chance it's a 3-4-3. So what we can do is try and have a bit of a guess based on their last few games and what we think they might do, especially with the squad they've got. Now, we know for certain that Manuel Neuer is going to be there. There's no way he's not. He is the goalie. He's the guy, the man of the hour. Antonio Rudiger tends to play as a centre-back. Don't know who's going to partner him. So it could be Emre Can, who Jogi Löw really seems to love. He's that guy who used to play for Liverpool. Remember him? He's at Borussia Dortmund. Recently converted to a centre-back from a midfield. But he is a converted centre-back. He's not a centre-back. And I even saw in the North Macedonia game a couple of really quite simple defensive positioning errors where he's caught just in front of his back line, and that plays someone on side so they can score. It's a solid player, really good at playing out from the back, and that's mostly why he's played as that centre-back, because Germany are going to have a lot of the ball and you need someone who can progress it from the back competently, which is something that Emre Can's very good at. He's even played at left-back. You know how fast Emre Can is? So that's the thing they do sometimes. Part of the problem with Germany is the fullbacks aren't amazing. So you have... We don't know who's going to play at left and right back, basically. Emre Can could honestly play at left back. Robin Gosens could be the left back. Could be. Christian Günther was called up out of nowhere. He's about 6-7 years since he last played. He plays for Freiburg. Called in. Very attacking, quite fast. So you can kind of get an idea that Löw's looking for pacey width from his fullbacks. Maybe what you're looking for. Then you're going to get Klosterman, can play at right back, but you've also got Marcel Holstenberg, who can play at right back too. Neither has been amazing in this position. And there's also a good chance that Nicolas Süle, that big dude who plays for Bayern Munich, big lad, could play at right back. Honestly, no idea. Joshua Kimmich, one of the best players, one of my favourite players to watch in the world. He's phenomenal. He'll definitely play as a 6. Potentially in a 4-3-3, maybe as part of a double pivot. But who does he play alongside? Because you've got Leon Goretzka, who you think has to play. He's been excellent for Bayern Munich all season long. Ilkay Gundogan seems very important to the team as well, plays in most games. But do you take out Goretzka to put in Toni Kroos? So you can't not play Kroos. So he's the sub-bench, comes onto the 3. Is it Gundogan and Kroos? Is it Goretzka? Where does Goretzka go? They have tried playing Goretzka. Where is he gone? He's out here. On the right even. But then if you've got Nicolas Süle as your right back, where's your attacking width coming from there? Yeah, there's lots of different things they can do. But we'll go with this and assume it's a kind of 4-3-3 for now. Leroy Sané at Bayern Munich from Man City, you'll remember him. Really quick. It's a winger. Just will stay out wide all the time and give them their attacking width on this left side. Serge Gnabry, the guy who used to play for Arsenal, you think he's a winger, he's a striker for Germany. So he'll play through the middle always. Really adept at getting, like France and Mbappe, getting in behind the high line. Not really going to happen in international tournaments when teams sit deep against you. He's a decent striker, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to attack across. Which kind of helps sometimes when you've got Kai Havertz playing as a second striker off of the right. So he's left-footed, he'll come into these sorts of spaces. So if Gnabry's attacking here, Havertz will come off the right into here. You need someone with attacking width. It's not going to really get it from Nicolas Süle. Maybe you will. Other options they've got. Timo Werner, our friend from Chelsea. So let's say Havertz isn't playing and Werner is. Werner can play through the middle, which then means Gnabry can go out to one of the wings, either on the left or the right. And that gives them, that's an insane amount of pace up front. So if they can get the ball from back to front really quickly. Rudiger likes playing these long balls out. Toni Kroos is amazing at playing the long balls over the top. You've got this front 3 who can get in behind and cause real damage to an awful lot of players. But you might be thinking, Emre Can, put Hummels in, was one option. Leon Goretzka might come in for Kroos, say. Well, you got to play Kroos. He's really good at the football. Thomas Müller. So he won the Golden Boot in 2010. He was one of the players of the tournament in 2014 when they won the World Cup. Where does he go? What does he do? What is a Thomas Müller? He can play as a 9. He can play as a 10, like a second striker. He's a kind of a dummy runner, we'll call him, based off of Pro Evo. So what he'll often do is make these weird runs, and not weird, but just clever runs. He's a space invader, that's what he's often referred to. Because he might not seem like he's involved in play, and he's often not the most technically gifted player on the pitch, but he's really good at finding space. And when you're playing against a team like Portugal, Hungary, who are going to sit deep and deny you space, this guy is the one who can find it. So you get the ball out wide to Sané, and Werner's going to get in and miss his chance. There's one he missed against North Macedonia, it was awful. He's a good player. Don't mean to dismiss Werner. He's a very talented player. I'm being too nice to him. It sounds a bit weird. Anyway, Sané, get the ball in. It might drop somewhere off Werner. He'll hit a shot off the bar to pass back to Müller, and Müller will find his way in there to try and score. Really unsure how they're going to play. And the big problem with them, regardless of who's actually on the pitch, is that they are quite slow to build up play. So build up will start with a goalkeeper, and they often just take far too long to get the ball up. And by the time they start bringing the ball out and playing it, there's no high tempo to their play. They need to quicken it up. Teams just drop back into their block behind them, can keep them away from goal, deny all the space, and then they're just sort of stuck, and they can get hit on the counter. One of the things they do to try and utilise this pace that they've got up front, if we get rid of Müller, we'll put our friend, who are we going to put back in instead? Sané, Werner, Gnabry. We'll put Goretzka back in for this example. So when they press, they won't press really high. Again, something you can't really do too often in international football is press high all the time, especially after a long year of playing every 3 days or so. So what Germany will often do is they'll let the other team play out from the back. So let's put a couple of players up here to show what I'm talking about. So say this is the opposition, and they're trying to build out from the back. What Germany will do, rather than attack them straight away, they'll let them play and move up the pitch a little bit. Because the more you let them move up, as long as you're blocking space behind, you create this sort of space. I'm just going to draw. I like the colour yellow today. So even that amount of space is enough for a turnover. These guys can push up a little bit. Turnover is one round about in the midfield, and then they can break, and you've got these guys just rushing behind. So they try and set those sorts of traps to utilise that. But like I said, the problem they've really got is slow build up, and it lets teams get behind them. And that's why they kind of struggle against North Macedonia. It was different problems against Spain, but the way that North Macedonia played is sort of how Hungary are going to play. And I just wonder whether there's a little bit of... might be a difficult tournament for them. We shall see. We are now on to Hungary, the Hungry Hippos, as they like to be known. If you don't know an awful lot about Hungary, let me tell you why you should love to watch them. So the way they qualified for the tournament was amazing. They finished 4th out of a group of 5, below the likes of Wales and I think Croatia. And then after that, they managed to qualify for the playoffs, and then they beat Bulgaria, fair enough. But in the final of the playoffs, they beat Iceland 2-1 with a goal in the 88th minute and the 90th minute +2. Imagine being an Iceland supporter at that point. Anyway, the scorer of that winning goal is Hungary's best player, Dominik Szoboszlai, who Football Manager people will especially know. He is a really, really talented player, the best by mile. He's a wonder kid. He's what you might refer to as a Mazzala. He likes to move into these wide areas here from midfield. He likes to move into the 10 kind of position. Just phenomenally technically gifted, and will make all the difference to Hungary if he plays, because the problem they've got is he hasn't played since December. He's got a really bad injury. It's an adductor injury. I'm not a doctor. I look like one, not a doctor. So I don't know how they heal or whether he'll play. He is in the squad, so we'll see how he gets on. If he does play, he will play as part of a midfield 3. Hungary always play a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2. They're in a group of death, so I have a strong suspicion it might be the 5-3-2. A few things that will definitely happen. is that Peter Gulashi will play. He's the goalkeeper for RB Leipzig, so he'll definitely be there. His, I don't know if he's friends or not, maybe they are, but they both play for RB Leipzig. This is our Willie Orban. Again, I don't know how to pronounce all the names entirely correctly. This guy here, Fiola, he gets sent off now and again, centre-back. Attila Zalai will often play in the centre-back as well. They have wing-backs that get up and down, really attacking. And what they often do is they'll bring play to one side, like so, roughly like this. And then they'll switch to a cleverly disguised wing-back who comes in off the other side, just completely unmarked, to take them forward. Another thing that they'll definitely have is Adam Noyi, trying to pronounce that right. Noyi here. He is a defensive midfielder, always will play as the 6. He plays for Bristol City. That's the kind of level we're looking at here. Kalmar, quite a creative player, more of a box-to-box, they'll get up and down. Then you've got Adam Salai and you've got Salai. So Adam Salai with a Z is quite important. He's like a target man. So they'll often play out from the back. And this is quite a clever thing to do sometimes, is the centre-backs will split when they build out from the back. The ball will go wide, say. The opposition team will start to press them and get up nice and close. And that's what will happen. And then as they do that, they'll pass back to the goalkeeper. The opposite team will drop back a little bit because they're expecting the kick. The kick goes long, and then Sally takes it, and the team moves up the pitch. So it's kind of like a little trap they play now and again. Let's get rid of this. It's all designed to get the ball forward because although they want to play out from the back, they're not the best at it just because of the players they have. They are good, but they're not amazing. It's deleted them as well, which won't happen in real life. So this is Roland Salai. He's really important as well. He's going to make a lot of these runs from in to out. So when they're trying to play balls out from the back, that's what they'll look for to get him into these sorts of positions here. Then he'll be joined by the wing backs. They'll often start with a sort of a high press, quite aggressive. They'll very quickly drop into a deeper block. And then the way that they defend is that, so it'll often look like a front 3 with a 2 behind them, actually. That's what they'll do. And they take the ball in here and try and trap the player on the ball. When they drop deeper, what then happens is there's very little space. So the opposition will try and fire passes out from somewhere to like this sort of guy here. Let's say he's dropping into this position here in space between the midfield and the front 2 or something like that. So trying to get the ball in here, these centre-backs will aggressively push up to try and track whoever the ball is going towards. And when, say it's Salai here, I'll get him in position better like this. Say the ball is fired in towards someone like Salai here, he will aggressively follow this guy in so he cannot receive the ball to feet, and then the left wing back will cover. So they're always defensively sound. They know their limitations, they know what they're good at. They are not a bad side. They're going to not be as good as Germany, France, Portugal, as you might expect, but they absolutely have the potential to spring a surprise. It's just cool how they got here in the first place. The last team in the group of death is Portugal. Like France, they've got one of the best squads in the entire tournament. Every single position is covered by pretty much 2 amazing players. And we can go through roughly how they play. They're still managed by Fernando Santos, the kind of friendly granddad who won the Euro 2016 with them. They have a lot better players than then, and sometimes they are a little bit more attacking than they were then because they have the ability to do it. But when they play against the big teams, they tend to get a little more defensive. So they've got amazing players. They're a bit more expansive than once they were, but not hugely so. There are a few things that will definitely happen. So I'll start with one I'm not sure about. Rui Patricio of Wolves from Portugal. He's probably going to play in goal. Anthony Lopez sometimes starts instead. But Patricio, I think, will be the goalkeeper for them. Ruben Dias, one of the few Man City players that they have in the team, is going to start probably on the left of the 2. And Jose Fonte, remember him from Southampton? He's still playing. He's just won the league with Lille. He tends to play as the right centre-back. It could also be Pepe, who is as mad as ever, still playing, had a great season at Porto. Could be Pepe that partners Dias. Could be Fonte. I'm going to say it's going to be Fonte, just because he's a little bit... I think he's a bit younger. They're roughly the same age, actually. Anyway, João Cancelo, I should say. He's a right-back, one of the best full-backs in the world, we'll say. We'll go with hyperbole. playing for Man City this season. He is able to move into midfield positions. He can overlap on the right. Great right back. Rafael Guerreiro plays for Borussia Dortmund. Another great fullback, really attacking. Both of them are essentially attacking players in the body of a defensive player, but really the body of a midfielder. Bad analogy. Danilo always plays. He's the holding midfielder, the defensive, I was going to say linchpin, but it sounds like a silly word that only football people use, but we're going to go with that. Danilo will always be here helping protect and screen the back two. He is joined usually by William Carvalho, who you might remember or know from being linked with Arsenal every couple of weeks a year or so ago. He is turned into a great player. He's a defensive midfielder, a little bit more able to go forward than Danilo is, but he'll either join them as part of a two, like a double pivot, or he'll be on this sort of side of midfield helping him out. Come across and just do all sorts of defensive work here. Bruno Fernandes always plays. He'll be as a 10, possibly as an 8, and when he's an 8, he'll be moving to these sort of spaces. So when they attack, we'll move him up a little bit. So when they attack, he'll be able to move into the sorts of spaces that he likes, either behind forward, be Ronaldo, we'll talk about him in a second. So you either come as a second striker, you'll be able to drop deep and send these sorts of balls into the box for someone to attack. Hugely important. He just makes things happen. Like, he scores goals, he takes a lot of shots. It's just really important for Portugal. Bernardo Silva will play mostly wide right. He's left-footed. He's able to either hug the line and come inside, or he'll attack the half spaces. Just great on the ball as well. Really useful for keeping control of games. It's something that he does for them. He plays a little bit more like how Mahrez does for Man City than how he plays for Man City, if that makes sense. João Felix, phenomenally talented player. He's often described as a playmaker, but he's more of I'd say a second striker. So he does create, and he plays through balls, and he does fancy stuff. Just great on the ball, really quick, nimble, great turn of pace, balanced, two-footed. But he comes in off this kind of left side, and will rotate with Ronaldo sometimes. So what you'll often find is Ronaldo will pull out wide just to get on the ball. Do you remember when he used to play left wing for Real Madrid and Man United? He does it now and again. He'll receive the ball. There's an example, I think it was against France actually, where he does this. He wasn't getting on the ball at all, pulls out wide. Felix drags players away. Bernardo Silva drags players away. Fernandes drags players away, and he just runs on goal and has a ping. Doesn't score, but it's Ronaldo. He's quite good, and he's able to do that sort of thing. Now, speaking of Ronaldo, you have probably heard of him before. So there's not much point talking an awful lot about him. He is the main striker, the main guy. He will be up here taking lots of shots, probably the penalties, probably the free kicks. That's what he's going to do. There's a few different options they've got. They can take João Moutinho. João Moutinho might come on at certain games to try and help control things when they play a more defensive kind of game. Like, for example, although they've got all these talented players and forwards, they can get quite defensive. And in 2 games against France, within the last, we'll say, year, 1 goal in 2 games, and it was France that scored it. N'Golo Kante, the prolific N'Golo Kante, scored it. So they are absolutely prepared to shut games down and be conservative. And that kind of works international tournaments. They won the Euros in 2016 because you've got so many talented players able to then play on the break. Silva, Ronaldo, Fernandes, Felix. It's going to give you a lot of options. If Ronaldo can't play, you've got Andrew Silva who can come on. He's scored a heap of goals this season. He's not going to come on now. He's having a rest. He's just resting his legs. Diogo Jota of Liverpool, he can also play. So Felix isn't quite having the game of his life. Diogo Jota can come on and he can play as a winger on either side, as a false 9. He plays a 10. There's heaps of options. Sergio Oliveira is another who can play. Say Fernandes goes off. You've got another player, great season at Porto, a bit more attack-minded than Danilo and Carvalho, but holds the middle quite well. And then another option they've got is Pota, plays for Sporting. Now, he has scored a ridiculous amount of goals this season. He's way above what his XG says he should be, his expected goals. So that's mostly because he takes a lot of shots from range, but he'll play as a 10 if he does play. He can play in central midfield. Another option off the bench. I don't think he'll start, but he had a great season at Sporting, and yeah, he's a really good player. And I think what you'll find in Portugal is that they've got a lot of different options. They've got some really, really talented players. They'll adapt to who they're playing against. Against France, they'll be quite quiet and keep things locked down. All you need is to give someone like Ronaldo or Fernandes a bit of a chance and they can score. They've got a good chance against Germany. Hungary might cause them problems by sitting deep, but then you've got Ronaldo. They've got everything kind of covered. It might not be so much the group of goals as it is the group of death, but yeah, it could be really, really, really interesting to watch. I couldn't tell you who's going to get out of it. I've got a feeling Hungary might do something in Germany. I don't know. Could be totally wrong. But yeah, that is the group of death. And we're going to try and do more bits like this for the other groups. So please, subscribe to Tifo IRL and enjoy the Euros. Enjoy the group of death. And yeah, there you go.
If you liked today's video, please subscribe to Tifo to help us reach 1 million subscribers. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.